Happy Sunday evening, everybody, and welcome inside another edition of Watch D.A. Live. This is our weekly joint sports kvetch communal session. And so glad you're with us. We got a lot to go over this evening here on the program. For those that are uninitiated, this is what we do every Sunday night, 7:30 Eastern time. It's not just a football thing. Yes, there was the Sunday pig pile throughout the NFL season, but we're going to continue doing this as we always do. This is a weekly show, even during the football offseason. We just use it during the football season as a full breakdown opportunity of the weekend and the Sunday that was around the NFL. Tonight, my friend Chris Mack is going to join us from Pittsburgh, the Steel City, because the Joey Porter stuff from earlier in the week was fascinating as he pointed the finger at Big Ben Roethlisberger and said, yeah, he was my teammate, and yes, we won a Super Bowl together, but he's a bad teammate and a bad person. Whoa. We'll talk to Chris Mack about that in Pittsburgh coming up here on the show in just a little bit. Also, we've got your little Mo laugh of the day, and beam ups are always invited, so make sure you're very frequent and alive and in the comment section with energy, because I'll read through my favorite comments coming up here later on in the show. And as always, make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, you stumbled upon us today, make sure you're subscribed by clicking on this button below me. If you're watching on Instagram Live, if you're watching on Twitter, make sure you're getting over to YouTube and make sure you're subscribing, because we are dropping fresh videos every single day throughout the football offseason. There's football every day, fresh football squeezed right here on the YouTube channel, so you won't want to miss a video. Make sure you're subscribed. It's free. Just click on the button and you are connected to the digital mothership. All right, let's get things cooking here with what else but your Furious 5 stories on the night. You got to love it. Why not kind of pick through my favorite stories of the evening? And we begin with the Furious 5's number 1. All right, number 1, I want to talk about this NBA All-Star weekend. All of these headlines, by the way, my own. Tonight, we are flying solo. It's a solo mission as Ben Spector, and Ben Spector, Gadget, executive producer of Watch D.A. Live, is helping out with Olympics duties with NBC. So he's going to be out this week and next week. So I'm doing this myself. So all these lower thirds, as we call them in the business, lower third graphics, if you will, these are all my headlines. These are all my puns. Yeah, I'm back. It appears that the weekend of apathy that was the skills competition, the Friday night, the Saturday night, the empty stands, the empty seats, the murmur in the crowd, it looks like Sunday's going to save it. It looks like this new format of Team USA, broken up to Stars and Stripes, and Team World, looks like it's going to save it. That the guys are going hard, Kawhi is going off, you've got close finishes and guys with effort, which thank goodness, because Friday and Saturday was deplorable. Specifically Saturday, when you've got mediocre dunks and players dancing to them, and a three-point contest won by a guy that's not even playing, and you just generally have thousands of empty seats suggesting that Friday and Saturday is a complete no-show type of event, a complete kind of bore meh fest. And considering that the NBA has dealt with the tanking issue all season long, and considering the NBA, after we turn our attention away from the NFL, is having to be hounded by questions about game management, load management, games played, etc. The fact that we can come out of, oh my God, teams are trying to lose, plus, oh my God, players don't care, Plus, they don't even want to compete in the slam dunk contest. Plus, the fans don't care. It leaves you with a sense that the NBA is gasping for air. Now, again, looks like Sunday actually might work, and that Sunday, the new format, might save some things. But here is the ultimate issue, is if you're not invested, why should we be invested? And the NBA is dealing with this more than any other sport ever has. We don't question whether NFL players care because they're all playing every single week. We don't worry about the NHL players caring because there's no cyclical load management or guys bailing on important games. And in the NBA, the messaging continues to be, this is not that important. These games aren't that important. These moments aren't that important. This season isn't that important. And that eventually filters down to the fans. You created the message, NBA. We ingested the message. Yes, there's going to just not naturally be corporate seats at events. But when you have thousands, a half-empty arena for what used to be the sizzling, dazzling, exciting moment of the NBA season, which was All-Star Saturday night with your stars of the dunk contest and your stars of the three-point contest and everybody out there wanting to see greatness. When even that doesn't move the needle and most people yawn and say, or you've priced them out and pushed all of the real fans up to the upper tier bowls so that all of your corporate seats are taken care of in the lower bowl, you have sent the message that it's not that important for the fan. And I just think you reap what you sow. I really think that. And the NBA is highly unlikely ever to slash its regular season because they just don't know what they would do without the 80th and 81st and 82nd games of revenue. Instead, it's trying to fool us into thinking that the NBA Cup matters because at least to them, it's still regular season games and we can juice it up. There's two things here. Number one, if the NBA Cup matters because there's money in it, then make money attached to load management. Make money attached to tanking. If players and organizations are so beholden to the dollar, which makes the NBA Cup matter, and you're the NBA and you want guys to play, well, then create all types of significant financial bonuses for tiers of games played. Maybe you can't question, maybe you can't doubt a guy's injury, but you can tell him if you play 82 games, here's this incentive. If you play 80 plus games, here's this. If you play 75 games, here's this tier bonus. You can do that if that's what this is all about. If that's what this is all about. You want to prevent tanking? I think the suggestion that all of the seeding is locked as of March 1st seems fair. You want to lock it as of this weekend, All-Star weekend? That's fair too. It would cut down to the crazy tanking that happens in the final month and a half, 2 months of the season. Fine, do that. But also to the players that suddenly cared this year because what? It's the U.S. versus the globe, or because there was too much pressure, or because whatever, it was your home arena like Kawhi. You know, honestly, why did it take this? Why does it always take something else? For 1 year was the Elam ending. Oh, we cared about that. For 1 year it was when they had team captains. They cared about that. Now it's going to be 1 year to this new format. Again, what's the message? We don't care. Well, if the players don't care and the organizations don't care, and by the way, load management is oftentimes the decision of the organization, well, how can we be expected to care? It is NBA All-Star Weekend, and all of it has been about how the NBA has problems. I'm going to get into a lot of football here in just a moment, but I want to welcome on our next guest. He and I did a show together for a couple of years on the BetQL network, which became the BetMGM network, which then got folded into the Westwood One network. But my friend is a Pittsburgh guy. He is a Western PA guy through and through. He has been in the Pittsburgh area doing sports talk and sports content for many years. And when I saw the Joey Porter situation unfold this week, I was like, I really want to talk to Chris Mack about it. Joining us here on the show is my man, Chris Mack, here on the program, the triumphant return.
D.A.
Mack, what's up, buddy?
What's up, buddy? How are you? You look great. Good to see you.
Back at you, man. I'm doing great. And there was so much in this that I was like, I need to bend the ear of Chris. I need to get his feedback on this. So number one, was there any part of you surprised or shocked that Joey Porter said the silent part out loud?
Not really, no, because Joey's always been very outspoken. That's first and foremost. And secondly, because he was part of that group of veterans that won that Super Bowl, the Super Bowl 40 game against the Seahawks in Detroit, when Ben was a second-year quarterback and Ben was still acting the way Ben did off the field. That wasn't very appreciative of Ben and the way he acted. You know, it wasn't just, I want to be clear about this. I think there's a very clear generational stratification here among Steeler fans, because I've heard from a lot since Joey mouthed off last week. Oh, why would he do that? Ben's a different guy now, all this stuff. Well, I think there's a certain age level where if you're younger than like 30 or 35, I really don't know if as a Steelers fan or a Pittsburgher, you remember very clearly what it was like when Ben was being a complete and total, for lack of a better way to put it, jerk. And he was. And he was a jerk to a lot of his teammates. He was a jerk to a lot of people in the facility and around the city of Pittsburgh, and even outside of Pittsburgh, as certain incidents and accusations flew about things that happened either in Lake Tahoe or in Milledgeville, Georgia. Ben was just out and out, and Joey told no lies in this regard. He's a bad dude. They loved what he did as their quarterback, and like Joey said, that's why they sort of circled the wagons and protected him to an extent from those stories about Ben, say, not tipping a bartender on the south side of Pittsburgh, or being rude to someone at a restaurant, or not signing autographs for teammates, even though he was a rookie or second-year guy and they were established veterans. They did their best to keep all that stuff in-house at the time. But now here we are, 20 years later, and Joey was always outspoken. That hasn't changed. And I think when you compound it with the fact that Ben was outspoken this season on his podcast, because we've all got a podcast now, D.A., even Ben Roethlisberger. When you compound that with Ben being somewhat outspoken late in the season about maybe it was time to move on from Mike Tomlin, the guy who brought Joey Porter in as an assistant coach, also the guy who was basically strong-armed or forced into firing Joey when he was an assistant coach. He didn't like that Ben sort of joined the cacophony of voices calling for Mike Tomlin's ouster. And so he had an opportunity to say something about Ben and James Harrison to a lesser extent, and he let his feelings be known. So I was not shocked nor surprised that Joey told everyone what he'd probably been feeling for the better part of the last 15 or 20 years.
In Pittsburgh, was Ben Roethlisberger viewed differently in the second half of his career? Did he turn a corner? Did he become a less bad guy?
That's a great way of phrasing it. He was a less bad guy. Ben was, look, this is also a city that's been graced for the last 20 plus years with Sidney Crosby. And this city Pittsburgh is in a great way, a very big, small town. Everybody knows everybody. There's 2 degrees of separation from everyone. So there's a good chance if someone's acted a certain way, you're going to hear about it. Despite 2 decades in Pittsburgh, I've never heard one single solitary bad word about Sidney Crosby. The man carries himself with the utmost dignity and has never so much as cast a sideways glance towards someone. So we're spoiled in that respect in Pittsburgh. It also gives us a unique perspective of having another superstar, similar in age, who found similar success early in their career around the same time. They both won championships in the same year. It was Ben's second Super Bowl. It was Sid's first cup. That we have a unique dichotomy there. There's a comparison that we can make. And while there's never been a bad word muttered about Sidney Crosby in this town, it's also hard to ignore what we heard about Ben over the first third of his career. A lot less of that was heard over the back 2/3 of his career. Let's be honest. He found someone, he got married, he moved out to the country and settled down and started a family. And also, I think, sort of settled in to a decent spot as a teammate where if you were to ask any of the offensive linemen, DA, who played with Ben Roethlisberger over the last 8 or 9 years of his career, Marquise Pouncey is a great example. They love Ben Roethlisberger. He was a brother to them. He did a good job of at least cultivating relationships with his linemen and Heath Miller, guys like that. He didn't do that across the room necessarily or across the city, but in some respects, he did try, I guess, as much as he could to turn over that new leaf. And so, yeah, the back 2/3, back half of his career in Pittsburgh, obviously, were much less pockmarked than the first 5 or 6 years.
It feels like to me that Roethlisberger kind of consistently kind of speaks out of school about the Steelers in a critical way. And a lot of people are kind of like, ugh, do you have to do that? I mean, when I think about very decorated Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks that have won, your Brees, your Paytons, your Bradys, before that, your Aikmans, your Youngs, your Marinos, it is really hard to imagine any of those guys sitting behind a microphone and blasting the organization that they became famous with. It just kind of feels like that's a little off guard. Like they're all a little bit above that. But Ben does this relatively regularly, certainly doesn't shy away from it. It is this that Ben just doesn't have the same DNA of those guys. Does he like the attention, or does he actually have things that annoy him about Mike Tomlin, a distance from the ownership, something that makes him more critical than any of these other Hall of Fame QBs and their teams?
So I think there's a couple of layers in answering that. One is it's kind of a tradition in this town. The guy who won multiple Super Bowls as a quarterback before Ben Roethlisberger also has a history of coming out and saying very hypercritical things of the organization. And Terry Bradshaw has had issues with the fan base over the years. And we're dipping way back into the 70s here, but it's just a matter of there are 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks in this franchise's history, and both of them have had no problem being critical of the organization. Both of them also, Bradshaw, and again, I don't want to dip way too far back into prehistoric stuff here, but Bradshaw was not a fan favorite early in his career because of his performance. And, you know, he was this Southern boy from Louisiana who kind of talked like a yokel, everybody thought, and they thought he was dumb. And so they treated him as such. And he got benched at one point, and many Steelers fans way back before they won their first Super Bowl in the early 70s didn't want Bradshaw to be the quarterback and were very vocal about it. Many Pittsburghers during Ben's tenure as quarterback became frustrated with him at different times, whether it was the off-the-field activities early in his career or late in his career when a lot of us, I think, honestly assessed him as not being nearly as good a quarterback as he was at the peak of his powers. And both of those guys are very similar in that they're hypersensitive to criticism. They are very happy to tell you what they think, but I don't know how well they take criticism back in the other direction. So I don't necessarily discredit either of those two, nor even Ben, for telling you what they think. One of the things that I think both guys probably learned from being in Pittsburgh is, and we've talked about this before, both on and off the air, I think, DA, Pittsburgh is a weird place in that we have, you know, sort of a Midwestern sensibility or Rust Belt sensibility in that, hey, like I said, really big, small town. We'll be friendly to you. You're out to dinner with your wife and kids. We're not going to bother you. We're going to let you have your time and be a person. But there's still kind of that East Coast influence where if you suck, we're going to tell you that you suck. Like, we're still only, Philly's 5 hours that way, but we're still Pennsylvanians. And if you suck and you're not performing well, we're going to tell you. And I think growing up in this city the way Ben did, not as a child, obviously, but as a young adult becoming a man, it becomes part of your DNA to an extent where you feel perfectly fine calling people out if they're not doing their job, because that's the accountability that comes from growing up in a place, being surrounded by people who will call you on your BS. And Ben has, I think, over the years, whether he was doing a coach's show back when I worked at 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, or now that he has his own podcast, Ben has no problem telling you exactly what he thinks. And I give him some credit for that. Like, a lot of people, you mentioned a lot of the guys. Like, I think Troy Aikman does a great job on Monday Night Football because he's willing to tell you exactly what he thinks of the way a guy is performing. But yeah, he might be a little softer on Dak, or he might be a little softer on the Cowboys. Same thing goes for a lot of alumni of certain teams who go off into broadcasting. Ben has no problem flaming anybody unilaterally and equally. I mean, this is the same guy who, when they drafted Mason Rudolph to presumptively be the heir apparent, said, I don't know why we wasted a 3rd-round draft pick on a quarterback. And so he has no problem telling people exactly what he thinks. And he did so much late in the year when, let's be honest, I'll defend Ben in this regard. The entire city was saying it's probably time for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers to part ways. Think back to that loss to Buffalo, late November, early December, when they got absolutely waxed and James Cook went off for like 200 yards on the ground. We all looked at each other. They were chanting to fire Tomlin at the game. We all looked at each other and said, you know what? Even if you're a fan, and some of the most strident, ardent Mike Tomlin supporters that I am friends with looked at me and said, yeah, it's probably time. So Ben was just saying what the entire city was thinking, and most of the fan base was thinking at that point. It's probably time for Mike Tomlin to have his Andy Reid in Philadelphia moment and separate from the team, go down a different path. Maybe he ends up coaching somewhere else at some point in the future, but he's done all he can do here. So I don't blame Ben for being critical of Mike Tomlin. Like I said, that's where I do fault Joey just a little, in that I think he was saying these things both about Ben Roethlisberger, and he said some things about James Harrison too, who's also been critical of Mike Tomlin, because he felt like his guy was being attacked. And his guy was being attacked because his guy wasn't getting the job done. And I don't think it's wrong to say that.
Before we let you go, Mac, how has the hiring of Mike McCarthy been received? It felt a little patronizing. It was like, hey, this guy's from Pittsburgh. What do you think?
You never guess it with the accent either, huh?
Did fans see through it? Like, oh my God, what a silly carrot to throw us? Or are they fired up about this? Or do they come around on it?
So I think at first, because there was a very strong current of fans who were interested in look, if Mike Tomlin's going to leave, or if you're going to force him out, whatever really happened behind closed doors, we may never know. If Mike Tomlin's done, we want you to turn over a whole new leaf. Let's go in a different direction. And this organization has a history of hiring young head coaches. Certainly not a lot of head coaches, but young head coaches. Tomlin, Cowher, Knoll were all in their 30s when they were hired as head coaches. So there was a very strong undercurrent of, let's go get that next guy. And when they didn't even bring in, for example, Chris Shula or Nate Scheelhaus for in-person interviews, the thought was, oh no, here we go again. They're going to try and run it back as much as possible, go 9-8, 10-7, and lose in the wild card round, because that's become what this team is. And that's where I think people are disappointed in the Mike McCarthy hiring. Now, there is also, I think, a large portion of us who were disappointed with the process of the hire, who are looking at it and saying, okay, we'll find the bright spots in McCarthy's resume and his career where we can. I think in large part, McCarthy gets short shrift to a certain extent because he had Rodgers for years, and because he talks like this, everybody thinks he's dumber than he is. So, Everybody looks at him as a dumb yinzer who happened to have Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback for 15 years and says, well, that guy's not too smart. He's from Greenfield, and his dad was a cop and a fireman, and he swept the bar when he was a GA at Pitt. How smart could he be? My cousin Lanny down the street did all that stuff too. You know what I'm saying? So there's, I think, around the league, a very strong undercurrent of might not be the brightest, but he's a great guy. I'm interested to see what he does. Look, I'm not necessarily enthralled at the idea of running it back for another year with Aaron Rodgers, but that's going to happen. I'm not breaking news telling you it's official or anything, but short of anything crazy happening in the next 3 weeks, Aaron and Mike are going to run it back for one last glorious ride into the sunset in Pittsburgh. And we'll see where it takes them. Probably 10-7 and a loss in the wild card. But I am curious, and this is where I find the silver lining in the clouds, DA.
Okay.
Mike McCarthy had Aaron Rodgers. You're right. But he helped develop Aaron Rodgers. He was a part of a coaching staff and a system that allowed Aaron Rodgers to seamlessly take over from Brett Favre in Green Bay and become the best quarterback in the league for many years. I want to see what they can do with a young quarterback. Mike's not getting any younger, so I don't know how long this process plays out for. But whether it's Will Howard, whether it's whoever they draft in this year's draft, assuming they take someone as another flyer in the middle to late rounds, whether it's somebody else, I want to see if Mike McCarthy can develop a young quarterback in that West Coast style of offense. And that, even though it wouldn't give us the fresh-faced Chris Shula, Nate Shieldhouse coat of paint that a lot of people want on the organization, at the very least would give people a lot of hope that, hey, okay, we might not have the young head coach who's going to be here for 20, 25 years, but maybe we found our quarterback. And if Mike McCarthy can do nothing else over the next, say, 3 to 4 years, if he can find that quarterback, then people will look back on it and say, hey, we're in a good spot, even if it's just with another yinzer from Don and Greenfield.
Chris Mack is my guest this evening here on the show. Mack and I did shows together many years ago, not really many years ago, but a couple of years ago. And you're on YouTube regularly. And so for all of our YouTube listeners and viewers, where can they find you?
Just search Caballi and Mack. Mark Caballi's been covering the Pittsburgh Steelers for 25 years. And he and I happened to work at a small local newspaper years ago and kept revisiting the idea of doing a show together. And finally, the opportunity came up. You can see Mark sometimes on the McAfee show as well. Us Yinzers stick together, like I said, because sometimes we're the only people that can understand one another. So Mark and I do a show a few times a week on YouTube. Search Caballi and Mack. It's on Spotify and iTunes as well. And yeah, doing a little work on the Westwood One network as well here and there. So I appreciate you letting me give it a shout out, DA.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Follow him on Twitter as well. The Chris Mack. Love this guy. And I really enjoyed doing shows with him many years.
Same.
Yeah, man, always good to catch up and touch base, man. So be well. I appreciate you finding time for him on a Sunday night. And we'll talk again, buddy.
Yep. I'll be listening to you and Babs, my man.
All right. Appreciate you. Chris Mack joining us from Pittsburgh tonight. That was awesome. Send me your comments, chat in the chat box, and I will read through some of those beam ups coming up here in just a little bit. That was fantastic. And, I don't know how Mike McCarthy is going to be received if there is an 8-9, a 9-8, a Mike Tomlin-esque type of season. But it is fascinating that they didn't go with the very thing that they've been known for so many years, obviously, which has been to get that young defensive coordinator or to get that young defensive style coach. And they decided against that. We'll see if it ends up paying dividends. But I thought that they kind of lost their way by not doing that again. And they just decided that for whatever reason, that was not going to be in their DNA this year. And we'll see if it ends up being the right thing or not. All right. I got some thoughts in terms of the NFL. Okay. And I wanted to talk about Brandon Beane. And yes, all of these lower third graphics and puns are yours truly's. I know in Buffalo there's a huge hesitation in embracing Brandon Beane because he comes off as the guy that shanked Sean McDermott, elevated himself, got in good with the owner, and can't be trusted. And I don't disagree with that viewpoint. I think Brandon Beane has to prove that he's not that guy. And he will prove that by how he treats people in the organization, whether there is a good vibe, whether this is a healthy working environment, whether Joe Brady works or not. We have to see all of that. So that is still ahead of us. If there, though, is a silver lining in Brandon Beane being a career opportunist, if that's what happened here, it's this. He knows he has to win a Super Bowl, or at least get beyond what Sean McDermott had done over the last near decade, which is close but no cigar. Crushing playoff losses, AFC championship game losses. He needs to get to a Super Bowl, or else he has failed, because he's survived and McDermott did it. And the fingers were pointed at McDermott that we kept hitting a wall because of you. It, in no uncertain terms, shifts the pressure directly to Brandon Beane. Yes, some of this is on Joe Brady. And of course, it's on Josh Allen and the organization as a whole, because the clock is ticking. But Brandon Beane, by shoving McDermott to the side and saying it's that guy's fault, which is what we heard in the press conference with him and Pagula. And it is what Pagula kept saying, it's his fault. That means that everything that happens that is at that level of success is a failure. And if it really is his fault, McDermott's, that they couldn't get over the hump, well, then Brandon Beane in charge should change that, right? It's expected to be changed. And I think that's going to force Brandon Beane to be more aggressive than he has been. Beane's whole edict has been, don't overspend, don't get in over your skis, don't put yourself in salary cap hell. We don't want to be digging out. We don't want to be the 2021 Rams. We want to every single year have a little bit of money to spend and never get too far into a hole so that we have to take a step back. We can't waste a punted year. Okay? But I think Beane recognizes the bar is now here. Super Bowl. Everything else is unacceptable. And you're the guy that said not getting to the Super Bowl was unacceptable based on this firing. Pagula can own it, but obviously Brandon Beane didn't throw his body on that grenade. No, you can't fire McDermott. He's the right guy. There was stickiness between McDermott and him over roster decisions, the trade deadline, what have you. I think you'll see a more aggressive Brandon Beane, maybe in the draft, maybe in free agency, maybe putting themselves into a little bit of an uncomfortable situation with the salary cap, because Beane's, what he must accomplish is clear as day. Get further than Sean McDermott, which is Super Bowls. So while the process in getting here was messy and uncomfortable, the outcome might be necessary. But the Bills need to be more aggressive and understand they have to get to Super Bowls or else. Next up in the NFL. And yes, that's an 8-bit Nintendo reference for you OGers. Stefon Diggs finds himself now having to deal with allegations and a court situation, a jury, a trial, a judge, lawyers, litigation, about him potentially assaulting a member of his inner team, his chef. And Stefon Diggs is a guy that has essentially worn out his welcome every single place he has been. And if I'm the New England Patriots, I am cutting bait with Stephon Diggs quicker than he can be done with this trial, quicker than he can be done with this lawsuit. Stephon Diggs and his brother have proven to be problematic headaches that are a constant distraction. And while Stephon Diggs' production is better than his brother's, even though his brother had an excellent season, 11 interceptions 1 year for the Dallas Cowboys, what Diggs proves is he can't hold a job. And what the Patriots were this season was the sum greater than their parts, was a team that actually superseded what they should have been able to accomplish, partially because of schedule, partially because of circumstance of the playoffs, but also because everybody contributed in the right way, pulling in the same direction. If you have a young team and you're trying to build off of the Super Bowl, what you don't need is a Diggs guy. You just don't need any of the Diggs. You don't need anybody in that family anywhere around your young quarterback, your offensive line, your coaching staff, your defense. And I know there was all this stuff about how Diggs was great with the young wide receivers. I'm sorry. Stephon Diggs, how great can he be with young wide receivers when he's in the middle of an assault lawsuit and trial? I mean, honestly, this is the guy you want your young wide receivers to learn from? And this is going to be an offseason where the front office of the Patriots brings in more talent surrounding Drake May. They need more weapons around Drake May. So those young guys, you want to put them at the foot of Stephon Diggs? Is that really going to be the best case scenario for you? Yeah, he was productive. That productivity runs out. And that productivity also does not overcome the problems with this guy, the distractions. Before the season began, it's about potentially, allegedly doing drugs caught on camera on a boat. After the season ends, we're talking about assault allegations. We're talking about changing attorneys. We're talking about having to shift things around in terms of what your excuse is for this one. It never ends. It never ends with these guys. Never. I mean, you'd rather have him like his brother drop a TV on his head. It never ends. Cut bait. You're better off without him. I want to talk about my alma mater. And yeah, I'm wearing my Syracuse hoodie. And this week, there was photographs at the start of a game against Cal in which the school, the attendance at the Dome was sparse at best for tip-off between Syracuse and Cal. And there were so many people that took to social media to say, look at how this program has fallen, and pointing the finger at the ACC and see they chased the money and did the deal with the devil, and that's why nobody in Central New York cares. That's why this program has eroded. There is nobody that is as loyal to the history and traditions of sports than yours truly. You all know that. And I loved the Big East. And I used to go to the Big East tournament annually. And I sat in the Carrier Dome for games against Seton Hall and St. John's and Pitt and UConn. I sat in that dome when the place was on fire and there were 30,000 people there. And it exploded in this regional intensity, and your big Mondays and your big players and your big personalities and your big coaches and your Georgetowns and your bloodthirst for these schools. I know it, and I loved it. And yeah, I don't like the ACC. I never have and never will. I don't like being in the ACC. But the narrative that Syracuse ruined itself by chasing the ACC dollars is also not rooted in reality. Because what was the alternative? It is true. You go to the Carrier Dome, and aside from when Duke and North Carolina come to town, the Dome never feels the same. A game against Florida State, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech doesn't feel anywhere close to what it used to. And the Big East in basketball is still fun, It's still cool, and you'd still love to be in it. No doubt about it. You want Providence coming in. You want Georgetown coming in. You want UConn coming in. You want Seton Hall coming in. That would be beautiful. But what was the alternative? Because you still got a football program. That's the nut here. That's the nut. And it's the unfortunate nut, but it's the nut. What are you going to do with football? Are you going to say, okay, football drops to FCS like Villanova? So you'll be in the Big East in basketball and then in FCS school in football? Because, yeah, you'd love Nova coming to the Carrier Dome. But what happens to football? Is it you become an independent? Okay. Look at what happened to UConn football. Look at what happened to UConn football when they came back to the Big East. And look at what happened to UConn when they were left out of the ACC and went to the American. I mean, it nearly destroyed all programs. They had to come running back to the Big East because it was such a debacle. Because instead of selling Syracuse, Georgetown, or Syracuse, Georgia Tech, rather, they were selling UConn, UCF. Even more meaningless. What, is Syracuse football going to go to the MAC? You're going to play Bowling Green now? You're going to play Maction Tuesdays? See, that's the problem, is that all those Big East schools, which you would love to be tethered to in every other sport but football, don't have football programs of note. They either don't have them or they play them in FCS. It doesn't matter. Most of them just don't have them. So I think it's a convenient excuse, or it's a convenient talking point to say, see, they ruined everything by going to the ACC, which, don't get me wrong, I wish we were not in the ACC. But unless there was a power conference in football that still wanted Syracuse football and didn't want their basketball program, okay, which hard to find that. The problem wasn't going to the ACC. The problem was there was no other choice. That is the problem of college athletics. That is the problem of the NCAA. And that is the problem with how the whole thing is built. Conference realignment sucks. Who knows where anybody is? Maryland shouldn't be in the Big Ten. Syracuse shouldn't be in the ACC. West Virginia shouldn't be in the Big 12. Nebraska shouldn't be in the Big 10. Arizona shouldn't be in the Big 12. There should be a Pac-12. But because of the way it evolved, grabbing onto the lifeboat and saying, save me, has been the only way to survive. I don't like what it's become, but you give me the alternative. And that brings us to a 24-team playoff. That's right. The Big Ten's proposal is going to be 24 teams, which is ludicrous. And I'll tell you why the Big Ten is pushing for this. They're pushing for this because they've got to pay the players. The cost of doing business for these schools has skyrocketed because now there's official payrolls. Now you got to pay your quarterback $3, $4, $5, $6 million if you want to compete for a national championship like Ohio State, like Michigan. You want to compete to win the whole thing? You better have a payroll in the tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. And how do you get that money and keep everybody rich who has been rich so that the AD's salary is not cut and the chancellor's salary isn't cut and the head coach's salaries aren't cut and you got buyouts to pay and coordinators to pay, and it's all one big arms race. And you also certainly have to keep up with the Joneses with your training facilities and your travel and your recruiting staff, and you have to make sure that you're in that portal every single day as long as it's open. How do you spend, or how do you make the money to spend all that money? Well, you need new revenue streams, don't you? And what's a new revenue stream? College football playoff that went from 4 to 12 to 24. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So don't get fooled by this idea that it's not simply about the administrations of the universities needing to make more money. They want to, they have to, they need to. It's not about making sure that we have more teams. It makes it more fair. It's not about let's make sure the regular season matters more. Let's make sure there's more schools that can wake up on Labor Day weekend and dream of a national championship. They don't care about that. They don't. They don't. This is a convenient way to make it seem like it's all for one. We want more people involved when it basically is we need more games to sell. We got to have more games to sell. We need more television properties. We have to have more television packages. We have to have more content. We have to have more games. You want the blinking light of how much college sports has just been filled with liars? For how many decades was a playoff impossible because of schoolwork? Wow. We got 11 games and then a bowl game. We can't ask these kids to play more than that. Well, we have 11 games and then a conference championship game, then a bowl game. But we can't ask them to do more than that. Well, we have a 12 regular season game, 12-game regular season, and a conference game, conference championship game, and then a bowl game. But we can't do more than that. Well, now it's 12 plus a conference championship game, plus it's a 4-team playoff. So there's 2 playoff games. Well, now it's a 12-team playoff, so there's multiple rungs. So now there's a 24-team playoff, and so what you get is college football teams no longer playing 12 games in a season, but 15 or 16 games. Well, what happened to we couldn't pull the kids away because of schoolwork? What happened to that? I mean, that was a very strong drumbeat for a long time. What happened to that? What happened to that was the cost of doing business went up once players started making money. And now it's build out the postseason. More teams, more schools, more games, more rounds. Everybody needs more money. Greed will get you. The greed will get you. All right, that's your Furious 5. Hey, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, won't you? Click on this button below me, and that way you are connected to this beautiful YouTube experience every single day. We're during the offseason. We are dropping fresh football videos all throughout the offseason. And if you didn't check this out on this YouTube channel, or it's also on my Instagram and it's also on Twitter, you got to watch Robert Turbin, my friend from NFL Radio, and our show from last Sunday prior to the Super Bowl, when he talked about the inner workings of the Seahawks locker room after the Malcolm Butler interception. It was incredible. In it, you will see me say nothing. It's a 2-minute clip, and I say nothing because I am mesmerized. We were on Zoom, so we're in 2 different places. So I am just looking down at Zoom, totally enthralled by this story. And what you have is a guy taking us through the inner workings of sports trauma. When Malcolm Butler intercepts that pass, he says the Seahawks didn't know how to respond, and everybody responded in a different way. He explains and describes a scenario in the locker room where he says there could be a 30 for 30 just on the postgame locker room. That Richard Sherman is yelling in Pete Carroll's face, "You stole that from us. You took that from us." And Marshawn Lynch is laughing, giddy like the Joker in Pete Carroll's face, saying, "See what you got." It is equal parts dealing with trauma in your own way and also a mutiny. It was an open mutiny, and it is enthralling. I highly encourage you to see that. That is on this YouTube channel. It's on my Instagram channel, and it is on Twitter as well. It's just shockingly good. And as soon as it happened, we went to commercial break, and I said to my producer, I said, Rich, we got to get that clipped. We have to get that clipped. And NFL radio doesn't usually put out a lot of clips. So we have to put that out. We have to. I haven't heard anybody explain it that way. And that's what makes Turbo so good. He's willing to go there. It took them most of the week to get that back to me and edit it, I guess, with the watermark on it, with NFL radio, what have you. I put it up there today. Within a couple of hours, had 50,000 views. I mean, it's so compelling. It's one of the most compelling pieces of content I've ever been part of. And I didn't say a word in the clip. Not one word. Not one word. You got to see it. It's just amazing. It really is. It's just amazing. All right, I want to get to your comments here. By the way, I am not on Mad Dog Sports Radio tomorrow because of the federal holiday. Obviously, I take my presidents very seriously. So, actually, AJ is off from daycare, so we're gonna do a little family thing tomorrow. Bourbon Bell is off of work as well, so decided to take it off, and been doing a lot of triple shows where we've had the Sunday morning NFL radio show, the Sunday night YouTube show, the Monday morning Mad Dog Sports Radio show. And I said, it's okay to punt on a Monday because it's going to be coming off of the All-Star weekend. And I figured there was not going to be much to talk about NBA All-Star wise. So we'll get to that on Tuesday. There you go. Okay. So let me get to your comments here because we have plenty of comments coming in. I appreciate all of them as always. As always, you can hit us up in the comment section on any of the platforms you are watching Watch D.A. Live on. And Watch D.A. Live is on all of these platforms every single Sunday night, beginning at 7:30 Eastern time. No Ben Spector gadget tonight, and so I'm running my own show. So I appreciate your patience with it all. Let's see. Matt says, D.A., something we're all wondering when you can address it. How's your insides doing post-Atomic Wings? I made the bet with Maggie Gray, and it was if the Bills made the AFC Championship game, she's eating a dozen Atomic Wings at 8 o'clock in the morning. If not, I'm doing it. Dan and John's Wings in New York did not disappoint. He did Atomic style, which was basically the hottest under using a waiver, and they were Insano wings. That's what they called them, I think, Insano. First one wasn't bad, but it was layering it on by the 6th and 7th. I ultimately did 10 of the 12 wings all in that setting. And it was the accumulation of them. My mouth is on fire. It wasn't quite as bad as Death by Salsa. It wasn't quite as bad. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I had blue cheese. And I think that was a big, big way to mute some of the fire. I also think the Death by Salsa was made to be like corporal punishment, where it's like not meant to enjoy. It's meant to be some type of gag gift, whereas the wings are meant for people that really like really, really, really spicy. So it was like kind of tasted pretty good, but it was just flaming. But by eating all of those wings, I got very lightheaded during the segment. I was kind of dizzy. I didn't have my wits about me. And then the rest of the day, I felt really weird. I just felt like it wasn't that my insides were on fire. It felt really uncomfortable all day. It just felt really uncomfortable. Like your body was processing something that it kind of hadn't ever faced before. And I texted the gang, Britt and Lou and Babs, at like 4 o'clock on, let's see, this was Thursday afternoon. I said, I'm still not right. Still not right. I was not right. And this is no joke. I went to bed that night feeling kind of weird, like off. And I had to wake up before Friday morning show. I had to wake up, and it was only then that I started to feel a little bit better. But I was still not 100% until midway through Friday. So it was about a 36-hour thing. And I had to discharge that. But it being in the system, it just made my whole body feel like very off. It was too much of a shock. It was like eating a chemical or something where your body's like, what the hell is this that I'm trying to process right now? So there's your detailed breakdown. If this keeps up, I'm going to be missing the Super Bowl to celebrate Valentine's Day. How about this? This will be Super Bowl Sunday next year. This is the weirdest calendar quirk, but check this out. This year, Monday, Labor Day, is September 7th because September 1st is a Tuesday. So instead of Labor Day falling on the final day of August, August 31st, Labor Day falls on September 7th, which means even though the NFL doesn't have an 18-game schedule, the Super Bowl will end up being one weekend later next year than it normally is. So next Super Bowl, there's a pro and a con here. You will have the day off of work, the day off of school, if your school and or company has President's Day off. If it observes President's Day, you will have Monday after the Super Bowl off, which is something people have dreamed about for a long time. But it's also Valentine's Day. So you might get jammed up if you have to do something on Valentine's Day on Super Bowl Sunday. Just keep that in mind. I'm here for you a year in advance. But how about that? The NFL never loses. They're going to get their Super Bowl Sunday on the day before a federal holiday without even having to have negotiated the 18th game. Matt says, I'm expecting some DA puns with Ben Spector gadget out. Well, I think you got him. Frankly, I think this has been a pretty good showing by the DA puns. ACC you later. Pretty solid. An old Nintendo Dig Dug reference, which El Capo got. Pretty solid as well. I also think, in terms of some of the ones I'm most proud of, those were really good. Rock the Bloat. Not bad. Okay. Not terrible, but not bad. Bill Bev DeVoe. That's a good old school 80s and 90s reference. Like I said, you get a Nintendo reference with Dig Dug. Sons of Apathy. I thought that was probably my best work. So there you go. I was proud of what we did here tonight. Very proud. And Matt says college football is going to turn into a new March Madness style playoff bracket, right? It's just going to be like your 68 best teams. And that's the way that they're going to do it. Just watch. They just need more cash. Because, of course. All right, we always end off the shows with a Little Mo laugh of the day. And I thought this was hysterical. Little Mo would absolutely love this. How about this? Little Mo laugh of the day comes to us from the Georgia-Oklahoma game because nothing says SEC quite like Georgia-Oklahoma hoops. And this was a fire at one of the concession stands at the game. That's right. There was a fire that broke out in the arena at one of the concession stands. And does that not look like one of those big pretzel machine things, like where they keep the pretzels and they keep them warm? So how amazing is this that like some type of iron that was in there that was hot, some type of coil or something that was keeping the pretzels or something, maybe that's a hot dog bin or something like that, caught on fire. Awesome, right? Little Mo would be laughing at a sight like that. We are going to do a Ask DA Anything members only episode next week. So not this week. It's the final week of February. I'm going to have Bogish and Bilotti join me for that one because they missed the previous one earlier this month when Mraz joined. So we'll do the Bogusch and Bellotti. Maybe Mraz will join on that one as well. We'll get the band back together for an Ask DA Anything. That is going to be a members-only video, members-only live stream in which you can ask me anything, as always, and ask those guys anything as well. They've been wanting to jump back on the show, I think, since the end of the network over there, the Odyssey Network. So they've been chomping at the bit. I certainly want to have them over here as well. So we're going to do that the final week of February. So look for that, which is when we will be giving away another piece of sports merchandise like this one, like an autographed Mark Clayton Sports Illustrated, okay? So I'm going to be giving them all away, putting them in the mail all together. We're going to be giving away multiple parts, multiple old school sports vintage items. You just got to be a member. So for the low, low price of $3.99 per month, you only have to be joined for 1 month if you want to be in on the running for the next piece of vintage memorabilia, which I'm got my sights on right now. Just got to win the bid on eBay, and then I can unveil what I'm going to be giving you guys. But if that goes according to plan, then I've got the stuff that I'm going to give away for you guys as part of the DA Touchdown Club on that live stream. So make sure you're a member. The option above me, you'll see become a member or a membership. That's above me on the YouTube channel. And hit us up there, $3.99 a month. And then boom, you're in. You're like you're good to go. And you're going to be part of the giveaway that we will be having then when we do that Ask DA Anything. All right, that's going to do it for me tonight here on the show. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We are all in this post-football thing together, so we'll make it through together. And how do you make it through? Well, of course, you end up becoming a member of Team DA. And also, you watch Sunday nights, Watch DA Live to come together with everybody and chat alongside one another and share with one another and be awesome with one another, because I know that you guys are that. And say hello to friends and check it, just kind of be part of the whole crew. And I will say, when the weather starts getting warmer, I got some good ideas, some really good ideas for content. So make sure you are staying connected to this Sunday night show and the YouTube channel in general. Make sure you are subscribed. Thanks so much, everybody. I am off tomorrow morning, as I mentioned, in Mad Dog Sports Radio. So I'll see you Tuesday morning. Be good. Be good to one another. I'm DA. Love you much. The Mothership. Disconnect.